What's happening, people? How you doing? This is the Sports Counterpoints podcast. I'm GB. I have Brian and Jason, aka Coop, with me. What's going on, guys?
Going on.
Happy to be back on. Sad to be away from Brian's house. That was fun.
Yeah, man, that was a great time. We're fresh off of
Great
our
weekend.
March, our yearly March Madness pilgrimage out to Brian's. Had a great time with all the guys. Shout out to all the homies, man. Had a great group of fellas come through. So it's great to see everybody. Everybody got back safe, man. That's all I could ask for. So it's a fantastic time. Thanks for hosting, B. As always,
Yeah,
man.
of course. Anytime.
As part of that, we'll talk about March Madness, men's and women's tournaments. Let's talk about Shohei, Show Me the Money, Ohtani, and we'll talk about the some of the new NFL rule changes too. So, kind of starting off, it's March Madness. Word the future and the slap he made, but yeah, we're back at it, man. So men's and women's tournaments. I think it's been a great year. One, because the women's basketball has really come up in the last couple years with some real superstars who are playing great ball, but also very marketable, etc. We've always had some, but right now they're doing really well. So it's interesting to see both tournaments running in succession. And also, this is the first year, from what I understand, that the women's tournament actually uses the March Madness branding. I think usually they just call them Final Four, I thought. So it's very interesting. So yeah, starting with the men's tournament, man, we had some really good games, a lot of fun ones to watch with the guys. Let's just kind of get your takes, man. If you want to give your thoughts on where it sits now and where we came from, start with that first round and let me know what you guys think and how.
Oh, Brian, go ahead.
The games.
Which one are we
Go ahead.
starting with? The men's tournament?
Yeah.
I mean, look, anecdotally, I always feel like there's one day that's better than the other in the first round. Sometimes it's Thursday, sometimes it's Friday, and this time it was Thursday. There were just more games that felt like they were kind of going down to the wire, were interesting late, that were kind of there. I think Friday there was a couple games there and there, but not as much, which was perfectly fine because there was plenty of reasons to have a cocktail and enjoy the great weather that we got Thursday and Friday. And a lot more sitting outside watching one game instead of inside watching all three or four. But as far as teams go, I didn't see any teams that particularly impressed me in either of the first two rounds. I didn't. The teams that were. So I thought this, and we didn't have a chance to do one right before it. But you had this really amazing season where anyone who got to first place seemed like they were falling right after. And so March Madness was going to be even madder than ever was kind of the theme going around. And I subscribed to that. I thought that was going to be. But then what happened was they got to the conference tournaments and there were upsets in the conference tournaments. And so teams who were not supposed to even make the tournament ended up getting automatic bids. And so some of these bubble teams, which are good enough to then take out some of these top teams on occasion, they didn't make the tournament. So these conference winners and so on and so forth, which means that while there are a couple of notable examples, Grand Canyon being one of them, by and large, you're getting a chalk result. There's, you got your 5-10 upsets, or 7-10 upsets. You've got your 5-12 upset. These are things that happen in every single tournament. They actually didn't happen at any higher clip this year than they had in years past. And I think that's kind of what the reason for that was. That doesn't mean that, Grand Canyon taking out St. Mary's in the first round and, playing a very good game with Alabama until the end. There wasn't any, it was less interesting. It was no longer as surprising. They just happened to be that team. And I don't think that there's any of these, 6, 7, 5, 3, 5 seeds, 10 seeds that are going to make any noise going forward. I think we got what we're going to get out of them from the first and the second round. My bracket is largely intact. The teams that I thought were going to go further, I have, and my Elite Eight is all 2s and 1s with a 4 and a 5 in Gonzaga and Alabama. And my final 4 are all 1s and 2 in Arizona. So, I'm still sitting okay. And ultimately, I have Purdue winning it. But Jason, what about you? What were your kind of impressions as we were watching the games last Thursday and Friday?
Well, I'm gonna start with the South region, and I have Houston winning the entire tournament, and they tried to give a brother a scare against Texas A&M. They fouled out 4 people that game and still managed a way to win that game. And they were fouling. They were mad at every foul, but they were fouling. But they ended up pulling it out. But as far as just the South region is concerned, not really any surprises to me. But I loved it. I think we all did, to watch Kentucky go down to Oakland. Surprisingly, a lot
James
of people
Madison.
thought James Madison, yeah, but more Oakland. And the reason why is because it's Kentucky. Kentucky is a blue blood, where Wisconsin's one of those teams we all know makes the tournament, but they'll lose to, some team nobody ever heard of every year. But when Kentucky does it, it's just a little bit more special. Plus, they're an SEC team. And I just love to see the SEC just lose. I don't care what sport it is. I just like to watch them lose. My bad, Mike. I know you in Louisville. You're a big, UK fan, but it was actually interesting to watch them lose because they have so much talent on Kentucky. Just moving to the but there is one team though. Even though I got Houston coming out of this region, I think Marquette is a team that's pretty good and kind of under the radar, and will definitely be a tough out. So we'll see if they match up against Houston for the right to go to the Final Four. Going to the Midwest
you
region.
You already sold out, dude.
Oh yeah.
You considered them a possibility.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. Duke, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm good. In the Midwest region, like you, I don't have Purdue winning, but I do have Purdue going to the Final Four playing against Houston. A lot of people were down on Purdue, but I think we all know if a team loses in the first round that wasn't supposed to lose, especially as a 1 seed the previous year, they're going to come back with a vengeance in the next year. Yep. And I'm not saying Purdue's going to win it. They might. But, they took care of business against Grambling, really took care of business against Utah State. Now they play Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a team that, I've never liked in the NCAA tournament. Just seems like, they're a good team, but they just never can get over that hump against that talented athletic team. Not saying Purdue is overly athletic, but Purdue is just a better team. So I do expect them to win. They beat the hell out of Kansas too. Gonzaga, good for them. Oregon, I was pulling for Oregon, Pac-12, last year, the Pac-12, I was pulling for them. They couldn't get past Creighton, but they did beat South Carolina. And then, but other than that, I don't see anything that can stand in Purdue's way of going to the Final Four. Moving to the East region, everybody has UConn winning, and UConn is a good team. I don't think San Diego State will be an easy out, so I'm looking forward to watching UConn play San Diego State. Again, happy to see Yale beat Auburn. SEC team went down. And then Yale got the hell beat out of them by San Diego State. That game was never competitive. So it kind of shows me how overrated Auburn was. We did see Duquesne play against BYU, but I don't think anybody really cares about that. Illinois is a sneaky, scary team, but I think they might lose to Iowa State, even though I have Illinois playing UConn. And I have Illinois going to the Final Four. So we'll see if that shakes out. But Iowa State is a scary team. And then lastly, going to the West region, won big money both games on North Carolina. So shouts out to them. They play Alabama, which is an SEC team. So I'll be rooting for North Carolina. Was happy to see Grand Canyon beat St. Mary's because, Glenn, I told you I had that one. But the rest of the region, I just don't want Arizona to lose because I have Arizona going to the championship game. Arizona looks pretty solid. And, I'm surprised that Baylor lost to Clemson because I had Baylor playing against Arizona, but Arizona is looking pretty good. Represent the Pac-12 in the championship game. Washington went to the championship game in college football. Arizona could represent the Pac-12 in the championship game. That's what I'm hoping for. Houston versus Arizona. I think that's the best game we can get. So, but other than that, only complaint I have about the tournament is that block. I think it was Kansas playing against Sanford. Yes, that was
the block was clean.
It was clean.
Yeah,
I think we were on TV. We weren't even watching. We weren't even reffing the game. We saw that was clean, and it was called a foul. That was a really bad. Tough. That was a bad call, and the referee I don't think was close enough to actually see if it was a foul.
The guy in the backcourt called it instead of the guy in the front court.
Right. And so
he's the reason why there will be a review in college basketball next year, because that was just so blatant and it ended the team season.
Yeah. Yeah, and not saying Sanford would have won, but they would have had a better chance to win had that call not have been made. And I think college basketball,
definitely.
I think we discussed this. They should probably the last couple minutes of a game, they need to review stuff like that. Because those are game-changing calls, and I think somebody should be able to challenge or something like that. And I think that the way the guy hit the floor is why the referee made that call. But I mean, I ref a lot of basketball games all the time in AAU. Just because a kid hits the floor doesn't mean he was fouled. I'm saying? Things happen. Momentum takes you down there or whatever. So I don't hate Kansas, but you hate to see a game come down to a call like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not on Kansas. Mm-hmm. Kansas played the game and it worked out for him. That's on the ref.
Right.
The ref who was out of position in the backcourt made a call from too far away that ultimately cost a team an opportunity to possibly move forward.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
real talk. That's the only complaint. So, I hate to see stuff like that, but it happened. Of course, people don't talk about it because it's Samford and, you're playing Kansas, but still, I mean, you need to have some type of.
It was a big story for 24 hours in our house for the weekend. But since then, there hasn't been outrage all week. And, people like, oh, Samford should have had an opportunity or
at least a chance.
It fizzled. It fizzled pretty quickly.
Right. I mean, college basketball, I know, they don't care about the little guy, but they need to do something as far as keeping the integrity of the game, like give a coach a challenge or something like that. So when stuff like that happens, because college basketball doesn't always have the best refereeing. They don't. So you kind of want to have a challenge or something to be able to, overturn a call like that. But, it happened.
The basics. Yep. I thought that was great, man. I don't have any specific game thoughts, man. I just enjoyed watching the games. We had some really good ones. That Oakland game was crazy.
Yep.
I will say that, we're seeing kind of the shift again. We're having some upperclassmen and guys who've been in the system a little longer versus playing freshmen.
Man,
you're gonna have a good shot, man. It just is what it is, right?
Yeah,
it is what it is.
College basketball has gotten a very big split between teams like Calipari, who was talking about how he, was thinking about it, where everyone's 1 year, everyone's 1 year, and then these other schools who are keeping for players for 4 years, and they're starting to win more regularly. So, the Kentucky game was a perfect example of that. Oakland, had a bunch of guys been there for 4 years, knew how to play together. Kentucky, as was the people after the game were saying, all those 5 guys are going to be in the NBA next year and impact players likely on the teams they get in there. And the dude from Oakland, there was a million memes, is going to be the best basketball player at his accountancy, or PwC, or like wherever he ends up.
Well, I mean, I don't feel sorry for Calipari, but he has a hard job because he has to keep retooling his team every year. But that's the life he chose. I mean, when his part of his recruiting pitch is
second highest paid coach in college basketball, and the only one where his entire contract every year, and I believe it's $8.5 million, is fully guaranteed. The only optional money that he has on the table is something that they put together because they have to with the NCAA. It's $50,000 based on the kid's performance in the classroom. And the reason it's so little is because everyone knows the minute this tournament's over,
they're out of there.
Kids are going anywhere around. So he's going to let that $50,000 go, and he's going to take his $8.5 million a year, second highest paid coach. So I don't have any sympathies for him. That's the job at $8.5 million.
But part of his recruiting pitch is I can get you to the league. That's his recruiting pitch. So I mean, that's what he does. But
he's not lying.
And a guy like Jay Wright, Coach Villanova, who I think was an excellent coach. He won 2 national championships.
Coach.
He did not recruit these one and done guys because he wanted guys to stay 3-4 years. And the guys that were on his team, they stayed 3 and 4 years. They finished out all of college. So it works both ways. And usually an NCAA tournament, when you got a 22, or in that case, the guy from Oakland, 25, 26, or maybe the guy from Howard, 27, when you got him, all these guys on your team, it's an advantage because they're, more mature than the guys who are 17, 18 when they're going against these freshmen. So
that's it.
Hey, I transferred out of my school before the track season started. I got 4 years of eligibility.
Man.
Just saying, a little 46-year-old. I can get a doctorate and play some golf for somebody.
The guy from Howard already had a degree from Harvard. He already had a degree, and it's funny because you got
back and can't walk the course. Right. I got eligibility.
Right. I want you to go back for track, man, just to get the training in.
Man,
gosh.
it's with the transfer
Blowing
portal.
Achilles in the first afternoon.
With the transfer portal, NIL, and that COVID year, yeah, cats in there for 8-9 years, man. It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool, man. What do y'all oh, you already said who you got winning it, Brian. Who'd you
I
say
got
you got winning it?
Mhm.
Houston. Okay.
Brian has
Nice.
Purdue, right?
Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue. I have
Okay.
Connecticut and Purdue, but it's Connecticut, Arizona, Houston, and Purdue with Connecticut and Purdue in the final. I think it's going to be a close game.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing Arizona get there. Oddly enough, I usually use a lot of like Ken Palm ratings and stuff like that to kind of do my bracket, and it always puts me kind of safely in the top quadrant. And then if I pick the right team, I'm usually in the conversation for winning. But this year I was kind of like, well, I'm going to use some of this more of a gambling based philosophy. And there's certain things, there's certain trends. A West Coast team hasn't won in almost 2 decades.
Wow.
No team has won back-to-back years, which means UConn ain't gonna win. In like through 2 or 3 decades. And you whittled it all down. And literally the only choice that was left was Purdue. So I was like, all right, great. I'm going to pick Purdue and then do the Ken Palm ratings and everything else to kind of fill in the rest of the bracket. But the gambling odds, if you take and eliminate all the things that have been that are highly against the probability based on gamblers, Purdue was like the only choice. So I just said, all right, this is a good year to play it that way, and that's what I did.
Okay, so your Final Four is pretty much the same, except instead of UConn, I got Illinois. Other than that, all the other teams are the same. Houston,
and
Purdue.
I actually have Iowa State. You were talking about Iowa State's going to be a tough out for Illinois. I have Iowa State beating them, and then losing to Connecticut.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Yep.
Yeah, and I think Connecticut's really good. I'm not trying to knock them. I'm going to the final.
Yeah, no, it's hard to do.
I just think, I like I said, I used the betting laws of physics, which said that UConn is unlikely to win it twice, so Purdue gets the nod.
Oh,
Nice.
good.
Sliding over, man. Women's tournament. I remember watching it. North Carolina, Michigan State, I think.
Both days,
crazy.
I think
They came back.
We had at least one TV on the women's tournament.
Had some good games, man. What have y'all thought about that? And then who you think's going? What do you think the final two is, and who wins it?
I'm gonna be quick. I don't watch the women's tournament. Well, I watched the game when I was with you guys, but I really don't watch the women's tournament to the Final Four. Definitely the championship. So because there are a lot of blowouts. You saw South Carolina beat somebody 91-36 because the talent pool in women's basketball is just so massive. The gap.
Presbyterian.
Yeah.
They beat North Carolina 88-41. So South Carolina got ballers. And shout out to Dawn Staley, highest paid women's coach, or I don't know if women's coach, or black woman as a coach, 22 mil. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, Dawn Staley. So I have South Carolina winning mainly because Dawn Staley is my second favorite college player. I only had 2 favorite college players. One was Diane Taurasi. Actually, the first one was actually Dawn Staley, and then Diane Taurasi kind of overtook her. But I still like Dawn Staley. I'm happy for the success she's having at South Carolina, and that's going to be my pick to win the championship. And I'm not about to tell you that I'm just this big women's college basketball, expert or whatever, because I don't watch none of it. But I saw Caitlin Clark's team. I think we all saw Caitlin Clark's team. They're okay. I don't think they're a national championship, worthy team, but Caitlin Clark is definitely a very, very good player. I'm not taking anything away from her, but I did watch that freshman from Southern California, and she's a baller too.
Juju.
I'm not saying she's Caitlin Clark, but it'll be good to see a Pac-12 team, Southern California, make it to the Final Four, and play against Caitlin Clark in Iowa. That would definitely be a game that I will watch. But in the end, I think South Carolina is just too tough, too strong.
UCLA in there too, but they got to play LSU.
Yeah. But that's my take. What about you, B?
So I got South Carolina winning it. That's because they have an abundance of good players on that team. It's not all driven by one player like Iowa is with Caitlin Clark. Now, there are other people on Iowa that can play, but Caitlin Clark, and watching the 2 games that I watched, she sucks all the air out of the room. I came away less impressed after watching her live because of her body language, because all like she was kind of ignoring players. She got into it with a coach. She got benched for a minute.
Yeah, her pops was telling her
to shut up, going
play.
on.
Yeah, pops was yelling at her to stop talking and play.
Yeah, and and so there was a little bit of that, and that's not the kind of player that I try to get behind. Note, I'm not a big Ja Morant fan. I'm not a big Trae Young fan. I'm not a big Luka fan. I feel like she's kind of like that. She's supremely talented. It's going to light it up. But I think that a team that is so dependent on one player at the late rounds of a tournament like this, when you're playing these teams like a South Carolina, like UConn was before, where you've got 4 or 5 players, they'll find a way to isolate Caitlin in those situations. And then they'll be able to lean on, like certain players. Kobe would say, like, I'll take me out of this game. I'm going to lock, my job is to lock down this person. Everybody else will take care of the rest. I think there's ways to do it. SC has the exact same type of problem, but they've got a couple more cast members in there. And that's because they have one really supremely talented player. I don't think that freshmen, no matter how good they are in the women's game, have the ability to go the distance, because there's so many teams that are powered by 3- and 4-year players. Teams, you get teams for the duration of it for the most part in women's college basketball. But I would love to see SC going up against Iowa in the Final Four. I'd love to see SC win it, but I think I'm pretty certain that there's nobody who I think has the ability to beat South Carolina. I do think some of these other teams can, and I know nothing about Texas. So I know something about USC, who's the one in one area. I know
LSU, South Carolina is the game.
But LSU versus South Carolina would be very interesting. But UCLA can beat LSU, right? That's when is that? That's the 30th, and that's going to be a great game. You could have a UCLA USC Final Four game too in that situation. But anyway, South Carolina, Dawn Staley's outstanding. She's done a great job. She deserves all the accolades, the money that she's getting, the respect that she's earned, and hopefully a national championship to go with it.
Yeah, and just real quick, Brian, my Final Four I have is South Carolina playing Stanford, and I have Iowa playing USC, with Iowa playing against South Carolina and South Carolina stomping them. What about you?
A little more variety in there, not all ones, right? You got the Stanford at 2.
What about you? Your Final Four, if you looked at the bracket.
Like I said, I'll go with. I really honestly don't know enough of these teams, but so I don't know enough about Texas to say that they won't win.
Yeah,
and all the other ones, I would definitely take South Carolina, USC, and Iowa to get to the Final Four. But I would not be surprised if an LSU or UCLA was able to knock out Iowa before they get to the Final Four, because they have teams, and I just, the powered by one philosophy. And they're good players on Iowa, but there's one, she takes all the air in the room.
Yeah, that LSU, we were there last year at the horse at Golden Gate Fields, Glenn, watching the LSU play against Iowa, and LSU just they just had ballers, man. It was it was cool. Yep. We'll talk.
Nice. Yeah, nice. Cool, man. Well, that's so for the tournament. So get a shout out to Dawn Staley. And also Caitlin Clark, Big 3. I don't know if y'all saw this. Ice Cube offered her $5 million to come play with him, which I think is super dope. The way that he did it and he wrote it up, amazing marketing, but also dope. Just saying, these star players, and especially professional women's basketball players here in the States, shouldn't have to go to some way overseas to try and make ends meet. Exactly. And end up in precarious situations potentially, right? Obviously Russia was a one-off, but situation being that they should be able to make money here. I doubt they're going to give everybody that kind of money, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't offer
giving anybody that kind of money. There's none of the men's players are getting that kind of money.
Well, I'm saying definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't offer Angel or some of the other superstars like that. But it was cool to see, a really great idea and a smart move by Ice Cube once again. So that was cool to see.
Yeah. So they were actually talking. He was on the talk show on ESPN today, and they were actually talking about whether or not it's actually feasible for her to accept. Like he made the big splash just by putting the offer out there. And he said, look, it's still a possibility until she says no, somewhat recognizing the fact that he thinks it's unlikely. But then they were talking about like the way the schedule works.
I was going to say,
there's only one period of time where there's really a conflict. And so if he wanted it to make it work, because he has a lot more power over when games are played, what time and all that kind of stuff. And it's not out there like that there's like 1 or 2 games where there's a conflict, but the rest of the time, and it's only a 10-week commitment. 8 for the regular season and 2 for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is possible. It is feasible that she could
I would do it.
accept that.
I can't even lie. I would do it. That's $5 million, bro. I would do it.
Yeah.
Once I'm out of
In a
school,
league where star players don't necessarily get $5 million.
But
Yeah.
you don't think when she comes out and plays professional, no matter what league she plays in, that she'll make that an endorsement season?
Oh, 100%. But
$5
$5 million,
I don't know.
$5 million more ain't never hurt me. So
Diana Taurasi's a better basketball player than Caitlin Clark and
Yeah.
Jenna Bain.
Yeah.
And she did not get nearly those types of endorsements at any point in time in her career.
well, Caitlin would get
Candace
NIL
Parker
too. But
was drop dead gorgeous. Also the best player in her sport. She didn't get those kind of endorsements until very, very late in career, and she's gotten some exposure after. But as far as marketability, you can't beat the best professional women's basketball player ever, Diana Taurasi, and the kind of the unicorn of and Candace Parker, who was the best player, most marketable because she's like model-esque beauty. Neither of them have been able to do it. So Caitlin should take advantage of it because it dries up. When there's a splash, but it dries up real quickly in this world.
yeah, I would do it. Hey, man,
Me too.
Even if I did make it, I'm taking all the bread. I'm turning down nothing but my collar, but you can't go off me. Word. All right, so that's the March Madness. Speaking with other madness, man, Shohei Ohtani.
Man.
Show me the money, show me the betting slips. B, give me a little, it's in LA. Give me a little bit of breakdown on kind of what you're hearing. I know it deals with betting and it's interpreter, but kind of what's the deal?
Yeah, well, let me just kind of lay out the best that I can, and I may miss some things because I don't have a photographic memory of everything Shohei Ohtani did. But
Sure.
news kind of broke while they were in Seoul. I'm trying to lay out a timeline, and then I'll give my opinion on the whole thing. But while they were in Seoul, the MLB kind of announced that there was something going on and that they were looking into some gambling activity.
Mm-hmm.
And the games were going on. His interpreter was still working for him. They were still talking in the dugout there. And that was also the first time that Shohei's announced that he was married and his wife was there on the sidelines. On that following Monday, ESPN kind of contacted Ohtani's agent to ask about the information that had been found, and that they had already, at that point in time, they had found the wire transfers for $1 million to $500,000 transfers. Then, later on Monday, a crisis team for Ohtani, who had been hired over the weekend, reaches out to ESPN and responds and basically says, hey, there's more information forthcoming and blah, blah, blah. Well, then, later on, and that's when it becomes, they say, oh, he was paying off as a favor, paying off the debt that he knew about both payments, had authorized both payments, was aware that his interpreter had some debts and was helping him to pay it off.
No, wait. When did he say that?
That was Monday evening.
Okay.
8:30 Eastern time. I'm reading a timeline right now.
Okay.
But then on Tuesday, that's when Ohtani's Tuesday night, the next basically 24 hours later, then it changed that the spokesman then said that that the gambling amount was at least 4.5 million, and didn't say anything more. And then later, the one guy, the interpreter, gets interviewed for about 90 minutes, and he starts talking about, it was a poker game, and there was some money there and all this other stuff, and he was just being repaying, and but he had his numbers wrong. He was talking about it was only 500,000 here, and then later on in the same interview, he then acknowledges that it was 4.5 million. So he's kind of bouncing off around places. So then Wednesday comes, he plays, but later on, so remember it was in Seoul, so it was like 6:00 our time in the morning. But later that day, that they went back to the gambling thing, and then later the even later that day, that's when they just kind of opened up the whole thing and said, "Oh no, he stole all this money." And so that's where it changed from he was trying to help a friend pay some debt, blah blah blah, to he didn't know anything. He was trying to cover it up after the fact because he was embarrassed. And he was said that the guy in the interpreter in the interview was lying, and that they've now referred it as $4.5 million has been stolen. And then he got the guy to get on there and basically fall on the sword. And he's like, obviously, this is all my fault. Blame me. I'm ready to face all the consequences. I understand that I won't be able to do this anymore. And this is later that same day. This is all Wednesday. This is all that Wednesday where kind of the thing hit the fan. And so he said that Ohtani had actually been, the crisis group said Ohtani had actually been telling his interpreter to tell all the people that, but that the interpreter was mismanaging the information because he was still in the loop until a certain period of time. So that's the timeline. You can kind of gather a little bit by my tone what I think that this is kind of interesting.
A little bit.
There's a lot of changes in this story. There are a ton of people who are speculating that that Shohei is a big gambler in his free time. That they don't know what he was betting on, but they do believe he bet on sports amongst other things, not necessarily baseball. And they think that at some point in time there was a conversation by him to his interpreter, and he said, I'm going to make a whole lot of money, and you can have a whole lot of that if you take this fall and clear my name, because of the way the whole thing changed up kind of midstream. My personal opinion is I don't know. I don't think you can't tell me Shohei's clean on this.
I'm about to say you don't sound like you don't believe he's scot-free in it.
There's no damn way. I mean, you take $45 out of my damn bank account, I'm gonna know. I'm gonna look through it, I'm gonna see it, and I'm gonna go whoop someone's butt. Like, period. $4.5 million? There is no damn way you're not missing it. And here's the thing.
Bro, I got big bread, man.
Shohei just got paid. No, Shohei he wasn't broke before, but his big money deal just happened. And even it's deferred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no damn way that he didn't miss $4.5 million in cash coming out of his deposits.
Yeah.
And also, his signatures or not signatures, his authorization was on the transfer slips for the $500,000. So it wasn't like those were done completely blind. You just can't tell me he knew nothing. Here's what I think is going to happen, and that's a whole lot of nothing. Shohei is the biggest thing in baseball.
For sure.
They know that, and unless they do an investigation and see that he gambled on baseball, I think they're just going to be like, this problem will resolve itself. If he got his boy to take the fall, we're all okay for it. And by the way, hey Shohei, you better get this cleaned up, because we can ignore it once, but we can't ignore it twice. I don't think a darn thing's going to happen. And I think what's his name, eBay. I think that man's a whole lot richer. I think he went and said, I'm okay with not doing interpreter work, but you paying me $1 million a year of hush money through the end of your contract. So stay tuned until the end of Shohei's career when someone writes the tell-all book about Shohei Unplugged. But we will never, ever, ever have any clear understanding of the full and real story ever. Like, if people even do half their job, we'll never be able to find out the full details.
I think when I sent it to you guys, when he talked about it, I said on our text message chain that I'm calling BS on this one. So he read from his little prepared list of notes, his statement, kept saying he never bet on baseball or any other sport, which I don't believe. I do believe he said where he never went through a bookmaker. I'm like, I don't think he did personally, but somebody did on his behalf. He said that He never made any wire transfers, even though they were coming from his account. Okay. He also, I think the guy who was making the bets said that Ohtani did actually know about the wire transfers, which he should. It's coming out of his account. And Ohtani said even though Ohtani hangs around this guy all the time, he said he never knew about his gambling issues, which I believe is a lie as well, because, the questions that come out to me is, well, if money's coming out of your account, how the hell did he get access to your account? And then he sent multiple wire transfers without your knowledge. I don't believe that at all. That's why I said.
Have you ever done a wire transfer? Anyone listening to us, you ever done a wire transfer?
Yes,
It's not like you go. It's not Venmo. It ain't Zelle.
Right. Exactly.
Like,
Right.
Like,
this is real banking.
It is
right.
a pain in the butt.
Yes, exactly. So, the fact that he has access to account and did wire transfer, say he didn't know about it. That's why I said I'm calling BS, because these guys are around each other pretty much every day, all the time, and act like you don't know, anything about him is just, to me, I just don't believe it. How money moves from your account to another multiple times and you know nothing about it, and that doesn't make any sense to me. But Brian laid this out. But laid this out well, so I'm not gonna go too far into it. But that's why I said I was calling BS on this one. So, and like Brian said, let $42, forget 45, $42, $2, $5, whatever come out my account. I was going through I think a couple of weeks ago and looking at all my monthly charges, Netflix and all this other type of stuff, Disney, and I was mad what I was paying $18.99 for Disney, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, and I thought I was only paying for Disney. And Disney was $13.99, so that's just $5. I'm like, what the hell? I've been paying for Hulu and ESPN Plus. I don't even use that stuff, and I'm paying $5 more. I'm only want Disney, so for the kids, of course. So that's just $5. So just imagine the kind of money that this guy was taking out of his account, and nobody know. It's whatever.
All my credit cards just had a alert. I got family members. They go spend $5 at the local CVS, and I'm like, what'd you buy?
Right. Exactly. I mean,
what's up? I'm like, how do you know? I'm like, I got alerts every time. No minimums.
It's all good.
Interesting. We'll see what happens, but I'm like Brian. I think it's a whole lot of nothing. This is a fun story.
And
disappear right when it's time to play baseball.
This is the opposite of
the money that he makes. The money he makes as an overseas talent. I mean, he's the reason. Never in the history of baseball have they had 2 games of the regular season played before the end of the summer season. The Dodgers came back and finished their summer league games after they have now played 2 games, two games as part of the regular season. They're 1-1 for the official. Never happened.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
is a force.
Plus baseball has a problem marketing people. So they need Shohei Ohtani. But to your point, Brian, I agree. It's gonna be a whole lot of nothing. This is the opposite of P. Diddy, where that's a whole lot of something, and this is a whole lot of nothing. So
different show, my brother. Different show. Woo, man.
P. Diddy and raided that boy house.
Can't keep running away.
Right. You ain't lying. If they want to find you and catch you and throw you in jail, they're going to do it. There's not amount of running you can do.
They say he hasn't left yet. That all of the reason that he was leaving, and I'm not the topic, but the reason that the plane went out there is they had a pre-scheduled flight family trip that he decided not to take. But anyways, whatever.
We won't go too deep. I do know.
I'll
probably say Russell Simmons. They never came back. I'll just leave that there. So let's slide to that last topic, man. We was talking about we're NFL fans. We always got to talk some football. Rule changes in the league. So owners meeting has been going on. I think it's still going on the last week or so. We had some pro days. Jaden Daniels had his pro day, today. So there's football activity happening. But as far as some rule changes in the league, we have quite a few that have been kind of interesting. Starting with, I'm just kind of go down the list, but let's start with the kickoffs. We'll get thoughts, and then we'll go to a couple more. Kickoffs are changing. So instead of having, the 2 teams separated, I think it's like 30 yards or 40 yards running into each other. They do it more closer to kind of, in my opinion, a rugby situation where you start off closer. So the collisions are happening without as much speed. You have your kicker and kicking team separated, kicking into a kicking zone. And then the returners return it from there if it lands in that zone. If it goes into the end zone, it's a touchback. But if it gets kicked into that landing zone, they got to run it. Go ahead, B.
Well, So let me add a little bit there, because there's a huge difference. One, if this is like they're using XFL style, if you kick it through the back of the end zone, it goes to the 35. If the ball bounces at the 1 and you don't return it and it goes back through, you get it at the 20. It's a 15-yard difference based on it. So you're going to see a lot of people who are long kickers, instead of trying to kick it through the back of the end zone,
kick it short.
Trying to find some way to get them to field it even at the 1-yard line.
Yep.
Because if they don't return it, or they let it go through from that point, you only get to 20. Which is a big, 15 yards is a lot in the NFL. I think that part and how people use that will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, that's another wrinkle to special teams for sure.
Yeah, I actually want to see kick returns. Even though, so Adam Scheffler on Twitter, he has something on there. I think it was a few days ago on March 26th. So yesterday, he put out, I think 6:25 a.m. on Twitter how the new NFL kickoff is going to look. So the kicking team is at the 35-yard line, the opposing team's 35-yard line, and the receiving team's players are on the opposing or on their 30-yard line. So they're only 5 yards apart. The guy kicks the ball, they wait for it to drop, I think between the 1 and the 20-yard line to the kick returner. And once he catches and touches it, then he starts running with the ball. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. I think that's in Canada. It's in some football league. They do that. XFL, yeah, they do that there. So I want to see more kickoff returns. I kind of hate it because kickoff returns used to be, fun and exciting, and everybody started, booming in the end zone and never return anything. So, I mean, I'm okay with the rule. I don't think it's a bad rule because I want to see.
Yeah, it's a 1-year trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with them adding some strategy to it, because you're right, it has gotten boring. You just get back in the end zone and call it a day. I wish they had made a rule to improve the opportunity or chance of maintaining possession on the onside kick. Now there's no surprises. You have to tell the referees before the onside kick, and then they go back to the traditional lineup. So there's no surprise. Everyone knows we're going to do an onside kick right now, and they're maintaining all the changes they made. Where the way the onside kick works, there's a less than 10% chance of actually converting. I wish they would go to a 4th and 35 type situation, where if you want to try and maintain possession, they give you a 4th and 25 or some type of very long play, one down or something like that, where you keep it, which has been talked about. But I just wish they had addressed that part, because I do think late in games, the idea that somebody could hold the ball back is awesome. And there's just no way between these changes to make sure that there's less contact, there's going to be less fumbles and things of that nature, and you have less of an opportunity to maintain possession.
Yep. So that's going to be interesting. We'll see how that works. Another curiosity for me is going to be in Madden. So I'm really interested to see how that looks in the video game world. It's going to be fun to see. Then they also banned the hip drop tackle. So a lot of defensive players are saying this is another lash against the defense, that they can't actually touch players at all. You already can't touch quarterbacks really. And I get what the league's trying to do is to prevent injuries to these, super highly paid players. But basically in this situation, if you were to run to the player, what happens is get your arms around them, typically at the waist. And then basically you're shifting your weight. Instead of pulling them down with your legs, you're just lifting your body and just letting your natural weight and gravity pull that player to the ground. What can happen is, and it's happened, I've seen a lot of these plays, actually not a lot, but seen a fair amount, where you swing around, the guy's ankle gets trapped, your whole body lands on him, legs are done.
Well, as soon as they grab you, what you're doing as a defensive player, you're dropping to the ground. So you're kind of bringing that person's momentum down to the ground as well, and you kind of swivel. So I understand the rule. I just don't know how you officiate that. It could be one of them things to where, you thought a guy did this, but he really didn't do it. So, I mean, I get it. But to officiate that is going to be a mess. What you think, Brian?
I think I understand it. A lot of players have mentioned that this is a type of play that ends careers because of the type of injuries that can happen. So, great, they got to do it. I understand the difficulties, but I think this is one of those things that's worth it. And they'll figure it out. What you're going to see, though, a lot of times where this is used is rundowns. So somebody gets away and someone's trying to come and cut the angle. Yeah. And the way you do that is you dive at them and kind of throw your weight to fall down to try and stop them from you almost now have to catch up and then hit them from the side.
Yeah.
Get that lower
That
body
is a
going.
hell of a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
And so you may see some more breakaways and or the tackle plus 15 yards because of the penalty to try and stop touchdowns.
And I think they said more fines this year than like penalties, trying to get guys up to speed on it, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that, Brian, because I wonder if that helps bring running back numbers up and help them get paid, because it might be a little
running back, wide
them.
receivers.
We'll see.
But yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting there. So you got that, and then they're gonna move the trade deadline a week back.
Cool.
Coaches are gonna get a third challenge. So if you have to start, both have two. If you win one of them, you get another one. So that could be a big deal.
Well, no, they no longer have to do that, right? So now you had the two, you got a third if you won the other two, but now you just get the third.
Oh, got it. If
you only have to win one of the first two.
Right.
In order to go
Yep. Got it. Yep.
You know, I like that trade deadline a week later too, because I always thought it used to be early. It used to be like week 6, and I think they moved it to 8. No, go ahead.
They added an extra week.
Right.
And so they had this is I think just a natural adjustment.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. There's some teams who don't know if they're sellers yet.
Yep. Yeah. I thought.
Oh, it's got to be a Niner rule. Emergency third quarterbacks.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we got the Tom Brady rule, so hell, you got that.
There's got to be a Niner rule, but that's kind of it. I mean, there's some changes to replay, et cetera, but that's pretty much kind of the bulk of it. So cool, man. I appreciate you guys. We're about at an hour, so that's pretty much perfect. Let's wrap. Let's get this thing up out of here. Starting with what's hella hogwash, man. Brian's segment. What's a bunch of hogwash?
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh man, like I said, my hogwash. I was go back to Ohtani, not knowing that $4.5 million left his account. And I guess that to me that's just a bunch of hogwash. But also I would say to everybody who was a bunch of hogwashes, the media and fans who really thought the Bears are going to be dumb enough to hold on to Justin Fields. That was a bunch of hogwash. They made the right move. They got a good prospect in Caleb Williams coming there. Can't have him and Caleb there at the same time. So, Justin Fields now in Pittsburgh. So it's hogwash that they kept actually teasing that they can keep Justin Fields, which I think we all knew was not going to happen.
I don't know that we all knew that. I'm saying I did, but I don't know that we all knew that. They literally, Wilbon was talking about how this was the greatest controversy in sports in Chicago history, which is a pretty big statement from a Chicago sports guy. But yeah, definitely hogwash that in the reality of it. For me, I don't think I've ever told this story on here, but I had this really, really miserably racist experience when I went to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And I've told people about it numerous times over the years. And I get a variety of reactions. Some people are surprised. Some people don't believe. And they're like, it really couldn't have possibly been that bad. I got literally chased out of 2 different bars with a friend of mine and had to go to a third and finally just said, F it, let's go back. I'm done for the night. And then this weekend, we were actually having conversations about, my point is that there's certain places that Black people just can't go. And sometimes our friends aren't able to necessarily fully understand that. When they put that list of the 25 greatest places for people to live, and they've got, Bozeman, Montana, and, other places, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, those types of places, those lists aren't made for everybody. And
they got good golf out there, don't they?
Amazing course. They have the Island Green where you take the boat out there. Amazing golf course. It's a beautiful
don't take
city
no boats.
And a beautiful
got it.
area and region. But I always have these conversations with folks, and like I said, the variety of interactions vary. We were having the same conversation with the group while having the game over the weekend, and as hogwash wanted it to be, on Monday, the story broke about what happened to the women's college basketball team that was staying there, predominantly Black, and for no particular reason, a truck driving down the street started yelling the N-word at them, and the players were kind of like, "What just happened here and why?" They were just, I think they were going either from their bus to the hotel and attracted this negative attention. Were obviously very concerned about it and ended up changing hotels. and it came right after my example, which was Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It kind of hit right after. So it's just complete another hogwash that it's still a problem. My experience was close to 20 years ago, maybe a little bit less than that, but a long time nonetheless. And this is still a real problem. And even more unfortunate is that when you try to explain it to people, some people just can't fathom the idea or understand that there are regions that are very, very comfortable to some groups of people, and people seem nice and jolly and comfort. And another group of people go there, and it is a flipping nightmare. And you know, people that that seem so nice, just the ugly comes out that quick, and that's hogwash. But that happened this week.
Yeah, I got nothing for that. I'm just what Brian said.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, minute to win it. Just thanks everybody for listening. Had a great time out there with March Madness, man.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Great time. Great time out there. Good to see everybody that came. And Glenn, I played poker with the guys, I think twice.
Yeah, I was there. I see.
You know, so
Yeah, saw you dealing.
I'm not really a poker player. I was more interested in my.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, yes, I lost about 35, 40 bucks, but I mean, look, it was great to be with the guys. It was a lesson, learn some things. Yeah, it's minor, you know, but it was just fun being. I think I'm gonna do it again too. It was fun.
Yeah. Like I said, we play for inconsequential sums of money. We pay for like 20 bucks. It's not like no one's not gonna be able to pay the bills. But it's for fun, and it's, you know, we had a great time with it. My minute to win it, or whatever you want to say. I just want to. What happened in Baltimore is just a tragedy, and my heart. There were 6 people who perished on that. It was nice to see that everyone on the boat did everything they possibly could. Everybody who was working the control centers, people who were working on the bridge, they've now released the audio tape of the guy saying, "Hey, we need to shut down the bridge, keep people off because this boat's lost control." And unfortunately, literally as they're talking about it, you see the boat hit, and they say, "No, it just happened." And they're all doing everything they can to react, but it's still just horrible. I watch a lot of John Oliver, and John Oliver a few years ago had a whole piece on the state of our bridge systems. And this is not that. But
right.
4 boats have ran into bridges. For those of you from Minnesota or like me, 17 years ago, they had a big problem where a bridge just collapsed. My heart just goes out to these situations. I hope that they can figure something out. I don't think this is one of those things that could be avoided if people did the right thing. I think that there's just some things that are unfortunate, and my heart goes out to them. Having just driven over that bridge last year, by the way, I've only been to Baltimore once, and happened to have gone over that very bridge. So, you know, like, it's just crazy to think that wrong place, wrong time. And that's it.
Yeah, all right. Well said. Yeah, our thoughts and prayers for sure. Thanks again, everybody who checks us out. We'll catch you next time at Sports Counterpoints.